Hi students, welcome to the overview for week 5. So let's do a quick recap on where we were last week or where we are wrapping up this week and moving on to in the next week. So in week 4, you were introduced to personal narrative as a kind of modality of writing, and you got your first writing project assigned, writing project 1, which is to write a personal narrative. And so you looked at a sample essay, and you also did some pre-writing to try to find your topics. So that's a good place to kind of start from this week. We want you to have some topic ideas, even if you can't use them and you get a whole new one. Or maybe you realize they're not narrow enough and you have to start over. That's okay. But we wanted you to have that experience of doing that so you'd have something to start with, because there's nothing worse than trying to start a writing project with like a blank mind or a blank screen or a blank page, right? So what I'm going to do is just kind of touch on the important things in this unit. So I do relink to things when we do writing projects, so you don't have to go dig back through. So if you see this little link sign, that's what that means. So this is just going to take you right back into that original writing project 1, readings and resources, just so you have access to it. If you need to review it, I always recommend kind of looking over the assignment again each week you work on it. This is a little bit of a, I'm kind of repeating how to access things, but that's okay. I wanted you to just have both readings in one place or know how to find both readings when you need them. So this is just a link back to the reading that we looked at last week. And then the new reading, I want to make sure you had a pathway to try to find that, because I know when you're using an ebook, it can get a little confusing. You are going to have access to this reading in one of our assignments we're doing this week, but I also want you to be able to find it in your ebook in chapter 4 is where it's located if you want access to it. Okay? Because those are your model essays. So you want to kind of make sure you have those handy, because you might want to think about what those writers did and how you can implement some similar techniques or kind of practice some of those. Okay, so these two go together. This is a tutorial on how to do critical thinking and reading assignments. We have not done this particular type of assignment in this class yet. Now, if you've had me before, you've done it. If you've had another class that uses this tool, you've done this type of assignment. So it's an interactive reading tool, different from the SmartBook. Yes, you're answering questions, but it's more like the readings in front of you, and you're answering questions on it. You can scroll through it. And there's 2 ways that you annotate that assignment. One is to just write in the text box. There's a little text box on the side. And the other is to highlight directly on the text. And then you type your answer in a little comment box. So there's a couple different ways that you do that. And so this tutorial up here will help you do that. I recommend you check that out first. It shouldn't take too long to just kind of show you what it's all about. And then when you get to this, you're not frustrated trying to figure out how to do everything. So that is gonna, like I said, we're still engaging with our readings, because our readings are our models, and our readings, remember, thinking of yourself as a reader and a writer when you do both processes. Thinking as a writer when you read and paying attention to what other writers do and how they're engaging you, the reader, and then you're thinking, how can I engage my readers, right, when you're working on your paper? So that's kind of the connection there. All right, so I do have a first draft guide. Now these resources, this is a walkthrough to kind of some things you want to think about as you're drafting, and you can go through this. It covers quite a bit of drafting information. Now, you might not do everything in the first draft, and that's okay. These are some things you want to think about trying in your first draft, some techniques you can use, and some things you want to think about with your topics as well. So if you scroll down here, I have this handout for you, because one of the things you want to do this week, now you came up with some topics in week 4, you might not be able to use them. Like I said, maybe they weren't specific enough. So this is a way you can check your topic scope and make sure that you have a topic that's going to work for a personal narrative and that it's the right scope, right? Because you don't have the room in a 3 to 5 page essay double-spaced to write about all 4 years of high school. All right, that's too many experiences. You need one specific experience that has kind of a narrow timeline. You can tell some backstory, but you don't have the room to do that. If you have a topic that has a wide scope, then you just end up summarizing. You're not using the techniques. It's not really a story, it's just a summary. And there's a difference in that. So this resource is going to help you do that. Okay, so that's what that's there for. And then you have a quiz on the guide. So hopefully that'll help you kind of cement a few things that you learned from that. I have some other resources for narrative writing. Now, this is a lot of resources. Just, you don't have to look at all of them right now, but some of them are helpful. One of the things I wanted to make sure you had, let me check, is a couple, I have a web handout, but I also have this narrative structure. It's kind of like an infographic that I think will help you kind of see, because this isn't like a traditional 5-paragraph essay, right? Yes, all writing has a beginning, middle, and end, but a narrative has a specific structure because it has kind of a chronological direction, and it has a plot with conflict and things here. So this infographic should help give you a little bit more understanding of the structure of a narrative. Okay, and you can make this larger and pop it out. It's a Canva presentation. Now, I have a whole bunch of little videos that I've linked. Like I said, you don't have to look at them all now, but think of this just kind of like a resource. You know, you can refer to it. Maybe you're like, you know what, I really want to learn how to show and not tell, because I write that comment a lot on drafts, like, okay, you're summarizing here, we need to show and not tell. Where could you do more show and not tell? So that would be a good one I would recommend. But there's a few here that you can kind of zero in on a certain area. Like you're like, well, I want to use dialogue. How do I format dialogue? That's here. How do I use figurative language? So a few resources here, and you'll come back to this again, and I'll repost this for you later when you're actually revising and still continue to work on your draft, okay? But it's here if you need it. I do ask that you use MLA format. Well, it's a requirement for all writing in this class. We use MLA format. If you don't know what it is, I have a tutorial here and a sample. You can actually even download the template if you want to. Down here and use that. You just have to delete all my text and stuff on there. But I have, so I have this presentation and I have this sample. So use that, and I would practice. It is required for the final draft that you use MLA format, but I would say, hey, if you can practice it on the first draft so you can get some feedback and see where you make mistakes, that's always ideal, is to do it as early as you can. And last but not least, what we have here is this place where you're going to submit your first drafts. Now, this is 2 assignments in one. First draft first, and then that's week 5, where we're at now. And then week 6, we're going to do our peer review workshop. So 2 assignments separated by 2 different weeks, same link. I'll repost the link for you when we get there for the second part. So because it has 2 parts, there's a lot of instructions. Okay, now what you see when you first open this is kind of the need to know. Like this is when what you're submitting now, the draft is due. Then you have, you have peer reviews you're going to do, and you'll have 2 of those. Okay, I'll talk more about that next week. And then you can kind of see It keeps track of everything for you. Okay, so because this is an automated type of assignment. So there's 100 points, 50 points. If you just submit your first draft and meet the basic criteria I've outlined, you can get the full 50 points. So that's how I do drafts. And the second 50 points is that you do 2 peer reviews at 25 points each. So if you don't do the peer reviews, that you'll end up with a 50 just for submitting your draft. So 1 assignment, 2 parts. That's why it's going to be important for you to complete the full assignment. Okay, so when you get to the instructions, like I said, there's a lot here because it's 2 different things, but I kind of break it down for you. I have some important info. This is a kind of a time-sensitive assignment, so you want to try to get everything in by the Tuesday deadline. Okay, if not, you run the risk of, not getting the full assignment completed. If you wait too long and you submit it late, then you might not get a peer review. You might miss the whole assignment. So try to meet those deadlines. I have the dates of when each part is due, okay, and all very specific instructions. There's also some specifics. Now, there are quite a few guidelines on this. You can only submit 1 time for a first draft, unlike other Blackboard assignment links where you can keep submitting if you mess up. This one, you only get 1 chance, so make sure you have the right document. So, that you want to make sure you get right. I can't fix it on my end either if you don't do it correctly, so just make sure you select the right draft. And make sure it's in a Word document, not a links or PDFs. Okay, so those type of things do matter. And then this is part 2, so you don't have past the blue as part 2. You don't need to worry about that now. So right now you're just looking at the part 1 for your first draft. Okay, and we'll learn all about peer review and how you're supposed to do that next week in the next unit, which will be week 6. Okay, well, I hope this helped give you kind of a rundown and know what to expect this week. But as always, if you guys have questions, please reach out. Have a great week, everybody. Happy drafting.